Ready?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. This is episode 1, Wild with Walker, with my buddy Jason Campbell today. Jason is a Army veteran, business owner, athlete. Are you an athlete?
That's questionable.
Are you an athlete? He does some athletic things. Father, husband, and man of God. Jason, thank you for being here for episode 1. We've been friends for a long time. You are my oldest Nashville friend. Actually,
I'm honored.
You are my oldest Nashville friend. So I'm going to start each episode with the breaking of bread. So let's go ahead and do that now. My wife made this fresh this morning. Oh my gosh.
I can tell. It's really fresh.
That was really fun and messy.
I love it.
All right. This is some honey mead we bought in Apalachicola recently. Just a hair there. We only need a drop for this. So I'm going to set it down here. Go ahead and break yourself a piece. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to be together as friends today. Please bless this podcast, bless the people that are watching it, bless Jason and his family. I thank you for all that you've done for us, and help us to honor the temples that you've given us, honor these bodies, that we may use them with our soul and spirit all as one, to be with you and to honor you and bless you. In your name we pray, amen. Take both. I'm all dusty from the bread.
Thank you for that.
Talking to the mic.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Jason. So, what's new at Surplus?
We've got a lot of new at Surplus.
Yeah.
Surplus this year is kind of taking a turn towards being more of a facility and team sports-based customer base. You know, we're switching to B2B. I'm working more with coaches and teams and building out facilities than I am, you know, where we were primarily focused in a retail space for the last 3 years, for a lot of reasons. It just kind of, we got called and then to go in this direction, which is funny because it's really where I started. You know, I worked in a commercial gym when I was 16. I am a coach. Like all these things kind of led up to me working with other coaches and not individuals as much. Of course, we were blessed that a lot of home gym folks are trainers, train out of their space, much like your wife, much like I did, you know, when I first started. So we were still selling to coaches a lot of times in the home gyms, but now we're just doing that at scale and providing even, you know, more innovative and, you know, kind of game-changing solutions for these coaches and the spaces that they train in. Because again, you know, square footage is always a fundamental thing. So if we can save them space and time and they can train more athletes in a more efficient and safe manner, coaches really resonate with that. So we've kind of been able to strike a chord with a lot of those guys in that area.
That's awesome.
But that has brought a lot of new products, you know,
yeah.
Like they've got needs, and I'm, you know, very glad to create solutions for them. So
you started with the rack mount pulley, which I have one here. Then you had the lower. Before that, I mean, we can get into more of your backstory later, but maybe now we'll just start at the beginning of Surplus. Before that, you became certified with NASM as a personal trainer.
Right.
You built out the garage. I remember that. That was a fun job. We pitched a TV show on home gym renovation to HGTV.
Right. That's right.
Which they were still pretty dumb for not picking that up. In the middle of COVID, we pitched a home gym renovation show to HGTV, got all the way up to the president of HGTV, and he said, word for word to us, I see more variability in kitchens and bathrooms than I do in home gyms. And I don't know what this guy looked like, but I'm going to guess he didn't work out.
It's crazy. You know, there have been other companies that do, you know, full build outs and kind of like turnkey space design and everything. But none have been to the paramount of like show home, they'd come in, like you'd buy a package from somebody and they'd come in and they'd put everything up and put it together for you, that kind of type of service, or they'd source some stuff. But Adam from Garage Gym Lab, he and I have been friends for a long time. He's got a great blog, been in the home gym space for a long time. He actually has started a company called Beyond Gym Design, and they build out gyms in $1 million homes, full of like incredibly high end type, where you're getting in with the architect or the home builder from a very early stage, designing the room from the ground up, which is really, the dream, right? And that's totally possible. He's doing very well with it, and he's only doing it locally. So he's only doing it around him.
Is he in that? Where's he out of?
He's in South Carolina.
Okay.
So he's in the Carolinas.
Nice.
I think it's South Carolina. But just killing it,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you got to have vision and money to make it happen, but it's definitely, there's a need for it, and people are starting to think about that when they build their new homes. They want to go in that direction. And we called it.
Yeah. I mean, we're in my garage right now. And if you can't tell from the video, and when we were looking for a house, one of the biggest things I prayed for was a big giant space. And I was sort of at the beginning of my fitness journey at that time. And so I just knew I needed a big space for stuff.
Yeah.
Doing stuff. I was playing hockey, wanted a place in the wintertime in Tennessee to play with the kids, workout. I had a minimal equipment at the time. I was still working out at the Y, but obviously God had a plan for us to build this space out and start doing more with my wife, training out of here, me starting the podcast here. It's been awesome. But back to, what you were doing, how did you go from building, getting your certification, becoming a trainer, building out the home gym to, I think I'm going to start inventing and manufacturing products?
So it's a funny journey. And like you said, we can go into my past a little differently. I'll focus in a little bit. But basically I started training out of a home studio. And I had a 6-post power rack set up. I really didn't have room for a standalone pulley machine. And I didn't like the options that were on the market. And Ashley was pregnant with our daughter at the time. And, I knew I could do something better. So I went to my buddy's house. I knew he had a machine shop in his garage, and I started slapping pieces of metal together. I had an idea of, all these single pulley systems are no fun, and the ones that keep them in line with the upright, those don't really work for me. So what if we just went perpendicular to the cross member? What would that look like? And so I kind of rigged it up with a spotter arm and like put 2 pulleys and 2 spotter arms. I was like, hey man, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
And did a few calculations, what it'd take to clear the plate, over the lower cross member. And I drew it up in my sketchbook, and we applied for a patent probably 9 months after I did the original sketch. We had a prototype about 3 months after the original sketch. And then I went to an engineer who did some official CAD drawings, and we had some laser cut parts. So there's 3 of those like official prototypes. And then my like slapped together, stick welded prototype. I still got them all. For
cool.
Nostalgia. And, made some critical decisions like early on, but I went and I really, I consulted with some people who knew what they were talking about more than I did. And we ended up with a really polished product on V1, which not everybody can do,
Did you plan on surplus being what it is now back then?
No.
When you had the idea for the pulley, you just saw, and this is what I love about the surplus strength story, is that I don't think your dream was to start building out massive gyms or doing these things. I think you really just wanted to make a good product for a space in the market that you saw was missing.
Well, it's funny. I mentioned Adam earlier, but I've been a home gym guy for a long time, and I'll get more into the story of how like surplus started later. But again, I went and consulted with people who knew the space. So I went to Adam from Garage Gym Lab. I went to Jake from Garage Gym Experiment, and I went to Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. I was like, I'm going to send you 3, this new system I came out with, and I would like your feedback. Here's an NDA, let me know what you think. And these were guys I trusted because I had been conversing with them. This was pre-pandemic. I was in the home gym community because I had a home gym. And,
were you training full time?
Yeah, absolutely. And so they all gave me feedback, and I took it all into consideration and made some significant changes, because of their feedback. And after that, you know, it was a really polished product. But no, to answer your question, when I first started doing this, like, I need this solution. I sent it to a couple guys like, hey, what do you think? You know, because I never thought about it for anybody else. And they're like, oh, dude, you need to get a patent, and like these will sell like wildfire. And I was like, whatever, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. So thankfully God had blessed me. Like, we had already come up with the brand because, you know, I was talking to some other trainers. We were going to start an app. Like, we just didn't really know what surplus training would be.
I remember that.
It was just my training business. You know, whatever it grows, whatever it scales, we were looking to scale a product of programming, you know, because we wanted to help people move better, right? Life of surplus, like trained to always have more than enough. And after the first pre-sale, which I launched from the waiting room while Hallie was being born, not at the exact moment. Yeah, no, I launched it from the hospital. It was, I was so nervous because it's like, I'm sure it's like what a music artist feels like when they're putting out their first album, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no idea how this is going to do. You know, we did this little photo shoot and this video. A kid from church came and shot it all. It was so grassroots, and we sold like 65 in the first pre-sale. And I was thinking so small. And that blew me away because, you know, it wasn't a cheap product, but like, it took us 15 minutes to assemble one. It took us 15 minutes to box one. It took 2 people. We were doing everything by hand. The first 75 orders, you remember, I was in the hallway at Jay's Peanut Warehouse.
Yeah. You were in the back of my office.
Hallway to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. We had to have a table on wheels so we could move it up against the wall. We had this like little sliver of space. And we'd stand on either side of the table and we knock it out. But those first 75 cables I cut with a razor knife by hand. And I used a pump pneumatic crimper for the swages. Cut them. I measured them on the floor. Like, you know, it was just like really raw. I remember wearing a hole in
bootstrapped.
Oh my God.
You bootstrapped it.
Yeah, everything, you know.
Yeah.
And quickly identified areas where we could do better at scale, but it was still scary, you know, because that pre-sale was like, oh, I'm going to have somebody else manufacture these. It's all going to be out of house. They're going to come to me all nice and finished. I'm going to put some stickers and badges, wrap them up with a cable, and move on. That got pulled out from under our feet pretty quick because that manufacturing company got bought. They doubled the price on me. And then we were out of business. I didn't know what to do. So I ended up seeking out different relationships with vendors, you know, steel company. Let's find a powder coater. Let's find a welder. Let's start piecing on it. You know, I was a project manager in a previous life. So I had some of these skills, but still trying to train full time, got a baby at home, you know, all the things, right? And it grew really fast. And honestly, like, I probably do better when I just jump in to the deep end and learn how to swim, because I can't tiptoe into stuff or I'll back out the pool, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk about, you know, this idea of surplus, life of surplus and whatnot. You know, I'm sure as you were praying through starting I mean, I remember when you were developing the programs and, you know, I was with you in your garage several times learning stuff. We were experimenting with all sorts of different movements and all sorts of stuff. You were training lots of athletes, lots of high-level CEOs. And it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of experimentation in your garage. It was a good time. But talk to me about this idea, maybe from a spiritual perspective of the life of surplus. You know, why is that? I mean, knowing you're a dude who always wants to be more than enough in everything you do. When it comes to your products, you never put out anything unless it's the best one out there. I mean, even I know you play beer league hockey right now, and you probably play way too hard in each, you know, the league that you're in.
Too hard.
And, you know, you are constantly, when you're in the room, like, people know Campbell's in the room. And so you're a lot. You're a big guy. And so talk to me about that from a spiritual perspective and how it applied to how you came up with the idea and the name.
I heard a sermon about living a life of surplus.
I remember this now. You actually texted me that. I remember now.
I texted you years ago, before any of this even started. I was still working at Bandy. And that sermon, like, it stuck with me, because the concept of living a life of surplus is always having enough that you can give to those who can't provide for themselves. So being a 5th generation veteran, being a follower of Christ, like, all these things, just, it all aligned perfectly for me in the way I feel about being a human and how we take care of each other. And especially the vulnerable and things like that. And if you, as a family man, if I'm only trying to provide for myself, then what's my family going to do? And if I'm not, planning to help others, then what am I doing? Like, right? Without love, nothing else matters. Right. And my greatest way as a servant is, I'm on the security team at church. Like, I do set up once a month. Like, you're just always giving back. It's just the way I have a servant's heart. This is the way I was raised. And that's really what our company's about, always looking for ways to give more back to the coaches that we serve too. So when I design a piece of equipment, it's unfortunately never the easy way to make it. That never comes to my mind. I want to design a product that is going to be effective for the athlete or the coach using it, and that's going to be easy to use and not take away from their ultimate goal, because their ultimate goal is not to get good at using the rack. Let's become stronger and perform better at their sport, whatever the case may be. And then we'll make them and decide, okay, we're either going to charge for what this really costs, or we're going to find some places where we can make compromises. But it's never the other way around. It's never like, oh, we're going to make, this J cup and it's just going to be so easy to make because we did it this way. And that's just not what we're about, because that doesn't excite me. And so I would have never gone to this point of being a business owner and all the fun things that come along with being a one-man shop and an entrepreneur, because it's not for everyone.
It takes a while. It's not the easy way. It's not the fast way. And I think, so something that popped in my mind while you were saying that is the story of the 4 soils that Jesus told. You've got the first soil where it's hard rock, the seed falls on it, the crows come take it away. Second soil is the rocky path. And so, the seed grows quickly, sprouts up, and then the sun comes out, scorches it, and it dies. The third soil is filled with thorns and weeds, which choke, the seed falls down, grows up, but then the weeds choke it out, right? So the fourth soil is the only one that reproduces, right? And in that message, Christ tells us, to live a life of abundance, a life of surplus. When you are fourth soil and you have removed the rocks from your life, you've removed the weeds and the thorns from your life, and you've focused in. I think that's one of the things as an entrepreneur I've done, or God has helped me to do. I can't take credit for it, but I've just been doing this video production thing for 12 years now, and that's it. I've had a lot of other fun ideas I've wanted to do along the way, but I've just stuck to the one thing. I ignored everything else that came about and just focused on it, and God has blessed it over time. And now we are living in a life of abundance in our video production business, where we're overflowing. Hopefully we'll be able to hire more people this year, produce more, take on more clients. And again, we have a product and a business model that is different than the rest of our peers in the industry. We approach it a little differently. And at the same thing, it's how can I give the greatest high quality product at a price that is not cheap, right? But, I know you have competitors that are charging more than they should as well, and we've talked about some, we don't need to name any names, but, there's
sure.
there's, and that's, good for them. And if people want to pay that, that's great. But I don't feel comfortable charging more than I need to. I can live a life of abundance. I've been training with Pate, and we've been talking about this idea of the 80% rule, and even in like health and wellness with diet, nutrition, everybody's always saying, oh, it's the 80-20 rule, 80, which is great. It is, like eat great 80% of the time, 20% of the time, have a drink, have a piece of cake, have a donut, whatever, as long as it's not like totally crashing your system. But like, how I'm seeing a lot of crossover into 80% of life in general, like giving 80% all the time, always. That way, when you get to 100, you're not distracted, you're not worn out, you're not exhausted, right? I think as early on as a business owner and an entrepreneur, I did give 100 and I burn out quite a bit. And now, I go 80% is good enough because our 80% is still better than the next guy's. Right? Because we've been doing it, we're not gassed. Islam, the UFC fighter, said the same thing recently when he was talking about how all the Dagestani fighters are beating all the American UFC fighters right now. It's because, this is what he says. And he's got, the backup right now in the fighting world to prove it, but they wrestle 365 days a year at 80%, right? Every day. Whereas he's saying American wrestlers are fighting maybe and practicing at 100% 3 to 5 times a week, right? And so it's this life of abundance that's just always overflowing. And if you train the right way, if you live the right way, if you're building your business the right way, you'll never run out of things to give.
Right. When you're doing things for others, I think the purpose is so much stronger. Like I'll skip on stuff for myself, So
what do you like? What?
Well, just like anything. Like if I know a lot of people will say like, oh, if you're only doing fitness, if you're doing fitness for anybody else, or you're never going to complete it. But like, I don't really subscribe to that.
No, I work out for my wife because she needs a really hot husband.
Duh.
Yeah, it's not for me. I don't need it. Jason, I don't need a 6-pack for me. It's for her.
When my daughter comes up to me and says, get me, I better be able to pick her up. And when my son says, Dad, let's go play hockey, I'm going to give him my best. And I don't want to be tired. Jesse Isler said it really good. He's like, we don't get tired when it comes to our kids. And, Chad Wright said it too, like in a race, like, no. We don't get tired. We get done, right? Like we do whatever it takes to push across that finish line. And like, if I'm not training, then I'm letting them down. If I can't pick up, the piece of material I need to put them on the table, I'm letting, my customers down. If I can't, perform my best in beer league, I'm letting my team down, and that ain't happening because that ain't what Campbell men do. My grandfather's a farmer. My daddy's worked blue collar 47 years in one factory. And that's what we do. We work hard.
So this is an interesting one too that I want to talk about is when you always are enough and you always have a surplus of strength from the spirit, from, a life with God, how does that, as we're supposed to be weak and meek in Christ, how does that translate over? And is that something that you struggle with? How do you approach that when, you want to be strong for your family and you need to be strong as a man? And in the Bible, it's not, Jesus was the weird one in saying that, men should be meek. And, the Bible is one of the first places in history we see instruction on men treating women with love and kindness and respect, right? Christianity was the first to do that, nowhere else in the world. But it doesn't mean we abandon being strong. It doesn't mean we abandon our strength or our manhood or our dignity or being capable, but we have to make ourselves weak. We have to make ourselves incapable in a way in order to bring God glory. So how does that translate over as you're always looking to be more than enough, as you're always looking for more than enough strength? How do you approach being weak with God?
I don't think meek and weak are the same thing.
Okay.
At all. I think it's a posture of your heart. If you're leading with love and with service, I don't think there's a point where you can really I think you're talking about being cocky or too confident in yourself. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Because we've got 2 Corinthians.
Like, how do I avoid that? Or
Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12, 8-9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So we are called to be weak in Christ because we know that we can never be enough. And so I think there is,
I
2
see,
Corinthians
and I take that
2,
as like
12:10, for when I am weak, then I am strong.
And see, I think I would take that more as a vulnerability weakness, not as a weakness as we would talk about it today. Like, I want to let Christ in and let all of him, all of him be all of me, right? Like, so I let my guard down because I want Christ to fill me with his purpose for my life. I want him to guide me, right? And so that's like, I feel like that's what he's talking about in that verse is like, yeah, you have weakness for Christ, but when the time comes, he gave you a sword and a shield, right? Like, you need to stand up, and sometimes we got to go to battle. Like, world's weird. Sometimes you got to do, violent things to uphold, I hate to say the church, but you know what I'm saying, believers, like you're going to have to protect it. It's going to get called. You sent me a post the other day about the 2015 beheadings. Like, those men stood on a beach, 12 of them in a row, and gave their head literally for Christ.
I would call that strength.
But
through weakness.
Were they not surrendering
Yeah.
at that time? So I really feel like that weakness that Paul's talking about that was first letter to the Corinthians.
I think second.
Okay, second letter to the Corinthians. So I think he's talking about having a weakness, for Christ, being vulnerable to his will, like a full surrender. And, I got baptized in 2014. I was raised Catholic. These weren't topics we talked about in school, growing up in Catholic school. And so I really had to learn surrender, like really, really had to learn what it meant. And for me to really come to that point in my life where I was like, no, I want to accept Jesus in my life. I want to be baptized. I want this public display that I am a follower of Christ. I wasn't going to do that. My personality, unless I was all in. And I was at a point in my life, they say, you find Christ at the bottom of your rope, at the end of your rope. I was there. And so when I found him, I was like, no, you can have all of me. And of course, we all know that wasn't the end of it, right? Like it's been, a journey, and every day is more challenges because the devil's always there. The enemy's always trying to tempt you. And like you said, addition by subtraction, like let's weed out these things in my life that are opening doors for Satan. They're making me vulnerable to Satan. And then like open these doors that are making me vulnerable to Christ.
That's good. I like that.
And so like it starts with the people you surround yourself with. It's the screen time that you allow yourself to have. It's the attitude that you wake up with every day. It's how you take care of your body, because that impacts all the other ones. If I'm sitting around eating potato chips, watching garbage TV all day, garbage in, garbage out. Like, we all know this, right?
That's the thing that is killing me lately. And one of the biggest reasons I started this show that I wanted to do is because I noticed the church should be leading this charge, right? So if we are a Trinity, if God made us in his image, we're 3 parts just as he is 3 parts, right? Which is body, soul, and spirit. And for some reason, the American church has embraced these Gnostic ideas that the flesh doesn't matter. And it's not that the flesh doesn't matter and the flesh doesn't have a propensity to sin, but it becomes redeemed, right? If the flesh didn't matter, then Jesus wouldn't have to have become flesh, right? To save us. And so, I love too that the Trinity, 3 parts, which is a triangle, which is the strongest shape out there. And so if you're missing one corner of, what'd you make that face for?
Did you see our logo?
I know. You got the triangle right there. It's the strongest shape. And if you're missing one part of your human Trinity with God, then you're making yourself vulnerable to Satan, like you were saying, and it requires discipline in all of these things. It requires discipline in the body, in the soul, and in the spirit. And if you're just forgetting one, my church, I love my church. We're going to keep going there. And, but they give the kids candy, like trash processed candy for every time they remember a Bible verse. And I'm like, the irony here is ridiculous. I mean, can you give my kid a piece of steak? I know it's ridiculous. You can't give my kid a piece of steak at church, but I wish you could.
Fruit's good.
Fruit is great. I love fruit.
Fruit's good.
Fruit is wonderful. Fruit's of the spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fruit's good. Like it's especially with kids, it's like an 80-20. You know, I grew up in the 80s because I'm old. And I'm older now. I won't say I'm old, but
that's that salt and pepper hair.
Well, it was like, you know, my parents did the best they could. I don't want anybody to think I had a bad childhood. My parents were abusive, but like my dad put Cheese Whiz on our broccoli because that's how we would eat it, you know. And I got cereal every morning for breakfast because they wanted to make sure I ate.
Yeah,
not because they were, you know, like.
Well, they didn't know.
They had no idea.
They didn't know. Yeah. I mean, it's like buying a tomato today. Are you going to make sure the tomato you bought didn't come from Chinese slave labor? Like, how are you going to know? You know? And so.
Blood tomatoes?
You didn't know we have blood tomatoes at Kroger?
I'm sorry. The American Heart Association label is on the Cheerios box. Frosted Mini Wheats had the word wheat in it, you know. Raisin Bran, it starts with raisin. That's good for you, right? Like, I mean,
they did a good job,
dude, until we put like half a cup of sugar in the bowl and then slurped it up with the milk. But yeah, I mean,
but that milk is so good,
dude.
The Cocoa Pebbles milk afterwards.
Oh, man,
it's yeah. I don't think I've had that since I was probably
Magic Spoon milk is pretty close.
Magic Spoon,
yeah, it brings me back. It's close enough.
Which Magic Spoon?
It's this new cereal. It's fantastic.
Oh, is it like,
this is not a paid sponsorship.
Is it supposed to be healthy?
It is. It's protein. It's limited ingredients. Okay. You know, things like that. I could eat the whole box though because it's not very satiating.
Without milk.
Yeah. I'm a hungry boy. The boxes are much smaller, like, you know, because they're smaller batch. They're more expensive, you know. That's what's crazy is that like there's a health food section at the grocery store.
What's the rest of it?
We stay out of the middle aisles. We stay on the perimeter of the store, you know.
Yeah, years ago I heard
we hit the freezer section and you know, I'll get, you know, sugar-free ginger ale, you know, as treats. Like that's our treat is like
I heard if it has a barcode, don't buy it if it has a barcode. And I'm like, that's extreme. But I mean, if you were to do that, I mean, you'd be shopping at the farmer's market pretty much, or in the produce aisle. I mean, your bell peppers and whatever have barcodes now too. But yeah, it's
and you can
tough.
go down a rabbit hole with that. And I think that's a lot of the 80-20, having grace for yourself. I think moms fall into this. Mom guilt is, I really feel like it's real. If you're in social media and you're watching, you know, and it's easy to compare yourself. It's a very human trait, you know, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not doing enough. You know, I should be doing this and I should be, you know, I should be doing Jenna stuff, you know, like, but
I do like the sourdough bread. You can take this home. I have a fresh loaf you can take home.
My wife has a master's degree from Vanderbilt University. She works 50 plus hours a week and she's doing great work. It's not like she's doing some mundane. I mean, she helps nurses do their job better, who help patients that have been in traumas and surgeries. This is an important job, you know, and she is carrying out her purpose that Christ has given her. So like anything I can do to support that. And there's no reason she should feel guilt that she can't make sourdough and homeschool our kids and have dinner on the table and all these things. And so I kind of like, you have to have that 20%, like, hey, we're going to have Chick-fil-A tonight. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, but like if she does make dessert, we're trying to buy something with less ingredients. We're trying to use coconut sugar. We're not going to do, you know, trans fats and saturated fats and stuff like that. Like we really try to make an effort. Like we just bought a quarter cow recently, you know, from a local rancher, and it's been amazing. Like these little steps, even though like sometimes most of the time they're more expensive. Sometimes they're a little more harder to attain, so they cost more time or whatever. Right, going to the farmer's market, picking out your own produce, like that's tough. But it's always been worth it because it's opened some other avenue in our life up that was like freeing, you know, and that's been cool to see because then we start getting more buy-in. Like, because as adults, that talking about adult and change and adopting change as an adult, it's a difficult thing to do. This is what I did before I got back into coaching. I trained people on electronic medical records. So you go in and you talk to an expert and you're like, hey, we're going to move your cheese. You're now going to be a novice at what you're doing. And you have to get that person's buy-in to trust that what you're saying is going to help them get to the other side, or that adult is going to check out and move on. So it's nice to have, God placing these little carrots in your life. Like, hey, this is going to be tough. It's the right thing to do. You think about it, you pray on it, you act on it. And then like, okay, here's your little reward. And this is how we keep going. And God has always been there with that for us. Even when it's scary and you're not going to walk on water unless you step out of the boat. Well, hey, that's cool, but it's still walking on water. Like it's scary. That first step is scary, but then you get one and you build your confidence, you get the other, and you get on that roll. And if you're married in a good relationship, even if you stumble, like you come back to center, get to walking again,
It's like Peter jumping out of the boat to walk on the water. And he fell.
Yeah.
He sank.
He's gone.
Yeah, he sank.
Yeah.
We all will. We all do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pause one more time. I can't, my brain just won't let me go unless I know these are recording again.
It's okay.
Now it's not here.
It's okay. Give me a sip time. I should have waited.
That was really good shit, and I didn't want to miss it. I noticed there were several clips.
I couldn't repeat any of that, to be honest. Just like Will Ferrell in Old School. That's how you debate.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out on my show here. I want to have some questions I ask each person. Mm-hmm. And so, the easy thing is to say, what's your bench? What's your squat? I am interested.
What's your best total?
What's your best total? Yeah. I want to break the 1,000-pound club this year.
You haven't?
I
thought you had by
I'm
now.
5'7". No,
I don't say it. I don't mean it like that. I really thought you had.
I haven't. No,
okay.
No. My maxes as of today are deadlift 405, squat 335, and bench 225 for one. So I have long arms. I have a long ape index. Is that what it's called, right? Ape index?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
knuckle dragger.
I'm a knuckle dragger, yeah. And I broke my hand twice and tore my shoulder twice playing beer league hockey. So that screwed up my bench numbers. And then I tore my MCL playing beer league hockey. That screwed up my squat for a while. So I'm trying to get fixed up right now.
Poverty bench press.
I don't, anyways.
So what did that total? 900?
Something like that, yeah. So I don't have too much further to go. My deadlift, because I have such long arms and I'm pretty short, I can get my deadlift up to above 500 pretty easily, I think, this year. So
with the right smelling salts, you could go 450.
Well, you were supposed to bring them today, and we could have done maxes. Okay, so talk me. All right, so I'm trying to figure out what to ask people. What's we don't need to go into. I don't need to go into maxes every time with everybody, but what is your current workout regimen? What are you doing right now?
What's your best lift on your favorite exercise, and why?
Well, no, I'm asking you right now. Like, what's your current workout regimen? What are you doing to stay fit, stay healthy? I know you've slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. So
you're playing hockey
about that. Yeah. So
how many times a week? 3 times a week?
3 to 4 times a week.
You started playing goalie this year?
I did. I started playing goalie so I could kind of walk through that with my son, who's 2016. He's a mite. He's 8, and there's a big gap in goalie coaching here in the South. And so I was like, all right, well, we're just gonna lean on some of these people I know. I'm gonna pick up some programming from some goalie coaches up north, and I'm gonna learn how to play too. So I started on a team, and immediately found some major deficits in my own
got this cool
physicality. I was not playing goalie when I got that. But yeah, that is definitely from beer league.
Yeah. I made sure that the camera was facing the scratch today.
You should see the other guy. No, it was,
we're not going to talk about our relationship with Christ and hockey. We're not ready for that yet. Jesus,
no,
we have. It's
Jesus
talking about
me.
Weakness and strength. That I will say, 11:30 p.m. hockey games on Monday nights there's a lot of vulnerability for Satan to enter in. So
there's still a way for him to sneak in, for Jesus to be there.
Oh,
on
for
the
sure.
ice.
Yeah.
But he lets me have some fun because he knows.
Okay, so current workout regimen.
Yeah, so
what are you doing? Your work, I mean, you're lifting heavy shit all day, every day at work.
Do. I have, I've got the gym at the warehouse, obviously like I'm a steel worker basically because I'm doing a lot of the manufacturing myself. So I am lifting heavy all the time. I do calisthenics. I do my regular push-ups, pull-ups and type of stuff, but I'll get on the sandbag occasionally. When I'm at home on the weekends, I hit the Peloton. I do kettlebell work. I've got a full set of kettlebells at the house, but it's really basic circuit stuff right now because honestly, my game.
Well, you built the foundation. It's easy to maintain.
Yeah,
with some of the extra things that you
and when I'm
with.
doing like repetitive stuff or lifting at work, like I'm doing it the right way. Like we're activating our core, we're using our legs, all these good things, right? But that's not to say that I haven't like missed having a regular training schedule. It's just right now in our life, my wife and I have some goals, and me spending an hour and a half at the gym is not in the plan.
Yeah. You're scaling the business right now too, and that's one of the hardest things. I mean, staying in shape and running a business and playing beer league hockey at 11 o'clock at night 3 times a week is hard to do. And so, I get it. It's, if I didn't have this at the house.
Well, and have a son in travel hockey. Cause I mean,
yeah, that's insane.
It's five, he's on the ice 5 days a week. And like this week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7 out of 8 days, like Sunday to Sunday. Like, I mean, it's a lot. But in that too, we hike as a family. We walk the dogs. We go to the park. We just live an active lifestyle. I have a walking pad in the den because, I do stay up late. I'll walk and, I like to wind down with shows. So I'll watch TV or whatever. I'm on the walking pad. I'm getting my steps in, whatever it is. Because to me, like my wife's hot and she's not leaving me. So like we're kind of okay like in that area. So like aesthetics aren't like a huge concern for me. But like I said, like muscle mass is the currency of longevity. I want to die living. I want to be able to get up and down out of the bed. I want to be able to get off the toilet. I want to be able to do all these things that I see a lot of people aging poorly that aren't able to care for themselves. And going back to, a life of surplus, if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of anybody else. If I'm in a foxhole with my buddy, I'm going to put my mask on first, and then I'm going to put his mask on. I'm not going to drown myself to try and save him, because if I'm drowning, I can't save him, right? So like I've got to be squared away before I can rescue anyone else. And so that all kind of goes into that. I've got a torn labrum right now, which is kind of a bummer. But it's one of those nagging injuries. Well, I'm going to do my PT and I'm going to take care of it. When I first started playing goalie, I'd go see my DPT friend Storm over at X3, doctor of physical therapy.
Okay.
I'm so blessed to have Storm in my life. Like he works with pro athletes all the time. Like he's such a genius. Like he just knows and cares so much. Young father, great guy, so strong, Boston Marathon runner, like crazy. Like he's an anomaly, right? Like he helped. So I went into his office. I had negative 10 internal rotation in my hips, which is kind of critical for goalie. Okay. If you want to get in your butterfly ever, like you gotta have internal rotation in your hips. I left his office that day. I think he got me to 0. And then with his exercise protocol over the next 4 weeks, we were able to get to 20 in a positive direction. So like shifted 40 degrees of rotation, just by like following the protocol.
So you're saying how wide your hips can rotate out?
Internal rotation.
Internal rotation.
External rotation never been a problem. I'm a power generator. I got a strong squat, I got a strong deadlift. I can generate a lot of power out of the ground. So a lot of that is external rotation, in the hips, going into the glutes. Like going back the other way and not getting bent over at the waist, being able to stay upright, like you need to when you're in your butterfly, and get your ankles far apart so that you can get a better spread and coverage on the net. That's really important as a goalie. So that was something I struggled with because it just never, like when you first told me, when we first started skating, hips wide, like, cause you want to have a wide stance. You want to have a stable base when you're a skater. But like as a goalie, if you want to move quickly and cover more crease space, you actually keep a little bit narrower stance than you would even as a skater, which it took me a little while to kind of get that in my head and why that would be. But yeah, I do the work. It's worth it. You know, I think I was able to adopt what he said because I am a functional movement specialist and I help so many people. And you know, Pate taught me a limitless amount of information. I don't even know how it's still in there.
I'm going to have him on soon and I'm scared.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So he put so much into me, like when I was recovering from my mountain bike wreck, that whole pivotal moment in my life. We can go over that in a little while, but that I saw it immediately. Again, there's like those breadcrumbs that Jesus. So like, do the work. Oh my God, hey, we're there. That led me to, you know, where we are today. So it's always worth it. You know, it's not always going to be easy, but it's always going to be worth it. It's kind of like having kids. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Which takes me back to something you said earlier, which was, you know, we go on hikes, we do these things. In our family, like fitness now is just what we do. We play video games.
Hey, that's a win for the home gym. Can we just say?
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's like you're never going to save money.
No,
and you may not even save time because you might spend a lot of more time.
I'm out here 2 hours a day at least.
Your kids seeing you do this is worth every penny, and every hour you spent setting this up and building it, it's worth 10 times that. Every time.
Well, and it helps them build a foundation of strength and discipline and things that they'll be able to carry on in their life. But, you know, I mean, I love Halo. I grew up playing Halo. My son and I play Halo probably a couple nights a week. My daughter loves Fortnite and Minecraft. We play a couple nights a week. They're allowed 30 minutes a day. And then the rest of the time, we're just doing stuff in here, outside, on the trampoline. I spray painted a pickleball court on the driveway last year and bought a pickleball net, and we were playing out there. And so moving has become what we do as a family together. And I want to find better ways to make it more fun and whatnot. I think a lot of what Jenna and I have done in our lives is built out of a lack. We started in lack,
right.
Both of us, from a health perspective, of a strength perspective, a lot of things, a financial perspective. And so this journey to surplus, a life of abundance with God in every area has been a long journey. And I am thankful that our kids, especially the older two, have been able to see that, right? The youngest kid is always the most spoiled, and you know, that's a whole nother thing. But my older two have seen us come from being weak, being unhealthy, being poor, and all of these things, and seen the discipline, the sacrifice.
Broke, not poor.
No, I was poor.
Poor is a mentality.
Fair. That's fair.
Broke is a status of financial woe.
That's true. Okay. I was never poor in mind. But
if you were actually poor, you wouldn't be here.
Sure. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. But it's been good to have them watch us come from that lack. And I'm glad that that's a part of my story. So, I mean, I was a vegetarian in high school. I mean, I don't like admitting that because it's pretty stupid. But I was a vegetarian in high school strictly because there was a girl on the bus that I liked. And I think that's one of the biggest things that led to me having Crohn's disease and going through all the other stuff that I went through in my life there. And then what I ended up fixing that with in lockdown of 2020, I did a carnivore diet for 3 months and mitigated all of my symptoms that I had been dealing with my whole life by 98, 99%, you know? And so now I'm probably eating 80-20 protein, animal-based protein to other stuff on my plate. But, you know, the kids have watched us go through that, and it's been fun. And so we have a lot of time out here. I don't know what the future has for them. I don't want them to be necessarily athletes. I mean, that'd be cool, right? That'd be cool. Like professional athletes.
They all want to be influencers, right?
Why do they want Nora wants to, kids want to be stuff. But They want to be something new every week. So, but yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm excited for the journey. I'm thankful for how God has gotten us here. Again, I'm thankful that I lived in lack and lived in that weakness for a while to know what it's like. And that's the story with God. Every time is, you have to start from nothing and build up. Otherwise, you'll never value what he's going to give you long term.
I feel like that's a lot of my testimony, and why I feel so close to him. Feel like a lot of times when people are raised in the church or raised, in the word, that you can almost fall out of, your closeness with him. Especially like if you learn it from like a childhood where you wouldn't have interactions with adults. Like, Jesus is an adult, right? In a lot of sense of the understanding of him. Like we always think of Jesus as an adult. We don't think of him as a child very much, because he did most of his preaching as an adult. The Bible's written. There's of course historical stuff about his life, but like we think of him as either the baby just being born or like a full grown adult,
30-year-old
with his 12 buddies walking around, and
his 12 teenage buddies.
Tell me D, like let's be, and yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it was though, right? John Eldredge has a great book about it. Paints Jesus as like an outlaw and like has this sense of humor, like just like a guy, like a man.
Yeah,
like I love that.
He was camping, most of the time, or couch surfing.
Yeah, I like that aspect. Like I like to think of Jesus in that way. And now I forget where I was going with this entire thing, but totally got thrown off with the John Eldredge book. God, it's so terrible. I was going to talk about your business earlier and the word value, because to me, like cost is irrelevant. Value is very important. Things just cost what they cost, but like they're either going to be worth it or not. And that's where value comes into play. Low value items are not worth what they cost. The high value items are probably worth more than they cost. With my relationship with Christ, like I was at a place where I was very, very, very far from him. And so when I came to him, I was at that place of emptiness. And so he was able, there was no like competition, and he was able to fill me with the Holy Spirit, like fully.
So you had nothing left to give.
Nothing.
So yeah, I mean that goes back to what we were talking about,
right? And sometimes, like when you're a kid, like there's so much other stuff going on, and when you're learning these things, and sometimes being forced, and like growing up in the Catholic Church, I'm not trying to talk down about anybody's beliefs, but it was not a great connection for me. It wasn't there. So when I was finally like, I have to accept Jesus, there is no other direction. It was very high value, and I still remember the sermon when I actually met Christ. Like I remember where I was sitting in the church. I remember the intro video. I remember who gave this, and a lot of things have changed, but that feeling I had is what kind of like brings me back every time. Like, no, this is it. Like there is no other. Remember what it used to be like that emptiness. Like we live for God now, and it's been so much better when I just focus on that, and it's easy to be human and kind of stray sometimes, but especially during beer league hockey games. But I don't want to say like I earned my relationship with Christ. I certainly didn't earn my salvation, because none of us we'll all fall short of the grace of God. Right. But I went through darkness, and on the other end of it, I found Christ, and I'm not looking back. There's no going back to that. And that had to be a part of starting Surplus Strength. And it's funny because a microcosm to that, I'm at Vanderbilt, I'm making good money. I'm a systems engineer. We're doing electronic medical record work. I have great benefits. My wife works at Vandy, and Everything's great. I'm racing mountain bikes, all over the Southeast. My wife's 6 months pregnant with our first child. And I took my brand new bike out to Percy Warner to do some training laps. And I went over the handlebars and hit a tree, doing.
That's when you broke your back, right?
Pretty fast. Yeah, I woke up at the bottom of the tree. I knew I was messed up. I'd separated my shoulder. I had some crashes before. And so I kind of dusted myself off. And I was like, oh, this was bad. We've done some damage. But I rode out to the car 2 miles and called my wife on the way home. I'm like, I'm going to need some Tegaderm and some Toradol. Like, can you get that ready? And it's Mother's Day weekend. We have dinner reservations with my parents. She's super pregnant. And so I just go home. And I'm like, I'm going to be okay. We're going to wear the sling. You just wrap me up, bandage me. Thank God I married a, SICU nurse who could bandage me up. And yeah, I walked around like that for quite a while, just thinking like, I'm going to be okay. And I was at work, still working at Vanderbilt at this time.
How long was it?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
And, like I went and got an x-ray that Monday. He didn't see, anything. He was like, yeah, your shoulder's separated again. Like we've been here before, like, let's sling it up. Like we'll get you back in a PT in a couple of weeks when the soreness goes down and we'll be okay. 4 weeks pass. I am on the bus to go to main campus from my office. I am having a panic attack. I cannot breathe. I've been having pain in my back. I wasn't on pain meds anymore, but those had run out for a couple of weeks. I hadn't slept in a long time. And I could not get a full breath. I call her from the bus and she says, meet me at the ER. I'm like, yes. So we walk in the ER and all the doctors are like, are we here for you? And they're like pointing at my wife, thinking she's going into labor. And like, no, my husband, he can't breathe. Like we need to, and they get me into the MRI machine. They shoot me full of contrast and they pull me out and we're in this like closet that they've separated into like 3 patient spaces. And there's like an inmate and an old lady with an abscess or something next to me. And me and my pregnant wife in this tiny little slot. And they come in, they're like, it's trauma docs that she knows. So it's like kind of embarrassing, because we worked there. Right. And they're like, did you know you have a broken back and a pneumothorax?
What's a pneumothorax?
Collapsed lung.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I'm like, no, but that explains a lot. And they're like, yeah, you have 6 broken vertebra, a collapsed lung, and a broken rib. Like none of that showed up on x-ray. So like me being a tough guy was kind of dumb, which that's happened before. and
when you've had too much strength.
Yeah, man. Like, cause I'm not like, I'm like, I got to get home to my wife. I got to take her to dinner with my mom tonight. Like, I don't care if my back's broken or not. Like, we're getting this done.
Yeah.
And those 4 weeks, I was building baby furniture, cutting the lawn. Like, we got a baby on the way. We got like, my wife wants to nest. I'm not going to not build the dresser. So I just found a way to do it, and it just sucked later, And but yeah, so we went into like a time of like, okay, Jason, like let's slow down. Like, there's no bike riding now. There's like, you've got a child on the way. Like, everything is different now. So that was a way of like God like slowing me down and like, but like tamping me back down to 0 so that he could like build me up in this new role. So I remember towards the end of summer, like I got back to riding and Jacob was born at the end of August, and which
is right when we met.
Yeah.
Like he was what, 2 weeks old?
Very young.
When we met.
And if you remember that October, I raced a 50-mile race in Chattanooga. And I was like, this is it. Because what I had done during that time was figure out how the body worked. And I started training myself in the way God designed us. And Pate was a huge portion of that. And that entire wreck was the pivot for me. Because as soon as I learned that, man, my racing got better. I was loving being a dad, like, and sharing all this and helping my wife, get back from her pregnancy and like move correctly and feel good. I was like, dude, this is it. And, like when I got out of the Army, I got my personal training certification. I worked at a gym, because I've always been around the gym life since I was 16. And it felt different this time. It felt like a calling, it was just something that I enjoyed as like a hobby then. And then it was like, oh no, I got to share this with people. And that's how Surplus Strength started. It like started right there. And I had one client who I raced mountain bikes with, and his dad really believed in what I was doing, saw, my recovery and my change and how good I was getting at racing and like how strong I was and able to recover. And, you know, and I'm 36 at this point. Like, I'm no spring chicken. Or I got 34, 35 at this point, you know? And, so I started training his son, who was definitely bound for college. He ended up getting 2 scholarships for mountain biking, still racing this day, race big mountain enduro, you know, and like that first push, like to share that with him. And he really understood it. You know, that was that fear, like stepping out of the boat, like, oh, nobody's going to trust me. Nobody's going to believe in me. And then here comes God and puts another client in my life and another client in my life, to the point where I was like, hey, babe, I'm going to quit my job at Vanderbilt where I make, you know, good money and benefits, and I'm going to start training people in our garage. And she was like, what did you just say? This is crazy.
Where am I going to park?
Yes. That was a major talk that we had.
Really?
Thanks for letting me take your parking spot, babe. It was rudimentary. Fold out rack, had a buddy weld up a storage rack, basic kettlebell, super basic stuff, right? But I didn't want to like go to a club and be stuck there and have them give me clients. Like, I really still wanted to be able to kind of pick and choose, because I had a path that I was on, and it was, I want people to adopt the way God made them. And that's how we're going to move. And we're going to listen to the way that God made us, and we're going to listen to our central nervous system, and we're going to use intra-abdominal pressure and all these things that like not everybody was really doing. And like you talked about NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, they're great. So they do adopt a lot of these concepts that I'm talking about. I went on to get rock tape certified. I'm a advanced functional movement specialist. So that's kind of a bridge between DPT, doctor of physical therapy, chiropractic, athletic trainer, those types, and personal trainer, so that you can have a cumulative impact on any of your clients or patients that are having, you know, long-term issues, lower back pain, pelvic floor issues, all these things that we work on, right? But this journey, like to teach people this, like it was this calling. And so I was with Peyton. Peyton and I had all these ideas of doing an app, and we got this brand around surplus strength, because that kind of just came to me. The logo just came to me and stuck. And, you know, so I designed the logo around the triangle.
I remember late
Trinity.
night text messages.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
It's just very important for me to include the spirituality of this, you know, and I don't care if you're a follower of Christ or not. Like, I hope I set an example to where you want to, you know, be interested in learning about Jesus, and you want to hear his word. And if I'm not making you curious about why I'm, you know, this way, then I'm probably not doing my job as a follower of Christ, you know. But all that to say, like, you need to know that there is a link to all this. Like, we're in control of our bodies because our spirit and our mind is there, and they're all together, and they work, you know, intertwined. So like, if you can't think about activating your psoas, they're probably not going to happen. I can help you with that. Let's get this linked up. Let's recover well. Let's, you know, input, output. So moving forward, 2019, Peyton and I are like, dude, let's open a gym. You know, he wasn't happy with the club that he was at. I was kind of training people in my garage, kind of halvesy and still working, you know, part-time. And I was like, let's do it. Like, I've got some money saved up. Let's find a spot. Well, we try and find a spot. God keeps saying no. Like, the lease won't go through. I'm like, you know what? I can't really wait any longer. Babe, I'm going to cut a door in the side of the garage. I'm going to put a new garage door on. I'm going to put an air conditioner in there, and we're going to build it out. And she was like, what did you just say? Like, I was not painting the picture for her.
This was when we pitched the show to HGTV.
Correct. It was still pretty, well, it was just after that. It was in 2020 when we did that.
Yeah.
But this is the cool part of the story, right? 2019, can't get the lease right. I get my space built out in December. I finally got like all my equipment. And of course, I had never made a piece of equipment yet. This is not, and it's 5 years ago. And 2019, fully built out. In March of 2020, all the gyms shut down. And all of a sudden, my books filled up. You remember, I mean, I was training crazy hours. I could space 15 minutes in between. I could disinfect everything. We kept everybody safe, you know, everything we could do to, you know, act safely in the environment that we were in and not be crazy. And, you know, if you want to wear a mask, you know, otherwise we're just going to clean here and don't come sick. Like, you know, like,
yeah.
Let's be smart about this. And I was just like blown away. You know, God said no. And like Inky Johnson said, like, what are you going to do when God says no? Like, are you going to put limits on what God has for you? Like, is that what you're going to do? Like, do you think the NFL is all you got? No, it's like, it's so much more. So like, that was another surrender where he broke me all the way down. No, like, broken back. Let's build you back up. Like, no, you can't have a commercial gym. Like, let's build you back. And like, every time I've stepped out of the boat and just been like, yes, he's just giving me more. And so fast forward, I'm training people. I'm like, we got to have a cable machine. Like, all these solutions are terrible. And then I had real life.
Your garage gym was packed. I remember there was
so badass.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do a cartwheel.
No.
There was no space for a cartwheel.
So badass though. Like,
no, it was cool.
Yeah. And
we did a bunch of videos and we used your gym as a location for
that's right.
like several.
We did it before the build out too.
We did some videos for Trigger Point,
Swiftwick,
Fleet Feet, a couple others.
It's my famous shower scene. That was.
Oh, Alan will forever.
How uncomfortable can we make Alan?
Yeah, how uncomfortable can we make Alan? Which is always a good question to ask.
Very uncomfortable is the answer. Yeah. So like, and then I had real life people to like use the product and give me feedback right then in my clients. But I kind of knew as a coach what I needed, how fast the change had to be, like what I knew what wouldn't work. And so I had a list of things that like it had to have, and like I wasn't willing to compromise. So when we finally came up with a design, and then it led
for the pulley system,
right? It was kind of crazy. And then like I'm standing in my first manufacturer's office, and this man by the name of Richard Hill, who, thank you, Richard, because he asked me this question. He's like, "Are you making power racks?" And I'm like, "No." And he said, "Why not?" And I went, "Shit."
Dang it, I have to make power racks.
That's me. And so here we are.
Well, you kind of just didn't have a choice.
I didn't, not anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, because the one I put together,
well, now the stuff
you who was just extremely difficult to build, and it had it just lacked.
The stuff you just did for Jeff was sick.
It turned out good.
It was cool. Yeah, that stuff looks cool. I've showed a lot of people that have made them go, oh, okay, interesting.
It's funny, like everybody feels like, oh, I've seen this power rack, and I've seen them all, like the HGTV answer that we got.
Ugh.
And then, but like, hey, when you hand them something that I built, I think it's God has put His Spirit like in everything that I've done the right way. Like He's just like kind of blessed me in that. Would be like, you pick up a Stealth Spotter arm, you pick up one of our J cups, and you're like, oh, this is different. Mm-hmm. And like you feel it, you see it, and it's there in the quality. And I could just live off that.
What do you mean?
That feeling.
Oh, gotcha.
Like when a coach goes, "Oh, you really thought this through," like, and they just get it. Because retail customers don't always do that. I don't want to say I get dumb messages all the time, but I get a lot of messages from people who won't read through stuff, who don't think about what they're doing. Like, oh, hey, I bought this thing and it doesn't fit my rack. I was like, well, you read on there where it's 4 1-inch racks. Like stuff like that, right? Like, oh, you clearly didn't even read, you just clicked.
And people get excited about it too. And just
But I'm saying, when you go to somebody who you respect as a trainer, like we keep on bringing up Jeff because Jeff's a stud, right? Former pro athlete, trains pro athletes, and he just goes, wow. Or he calls me, he's like, I need something to do this. And I'm like, can you FaceTime me? Let's talk. And I'll throw something together and I'll be like something like this. And we go, yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna call you back in 10 minutes. And I go and I make a prototype out of just scrap parts or whatever we've got laying around. I've got some idea, or I'm gonna do a sketch and I'm gonna get a render done or whatever. And then I come back to him and I'm like, what do you think? And he goes, dude, you just changed my life. Like this is the Vex pin. That's how that happened. We had a product that was a speed pin. It's a 1-inch shaft. It's 5 inches long, so it sticks out of the rack. He wanted a way to do overcoming isometrics. And I'm like,
explain isometrics for people that don't know.
So like you would go into a flex position. Like if you hooked a low squat into a low anchored point, and you would fight against
to where the barbell cannot move.
Point. There is no barbell in that particular movement. It would be like if you tried to wrap a chain around the lower cross member and hook a belt squat into it.
Yeah.
Right. Or to do it you would have to have like an upside down J cup set up to do it with a barbell.
Right.
But you want something that will fully stop your progress, you know, in the movement, and you stay there and hold it for as long as you can, which for anybody who's like a power producer or athlete, it's a big deal. And so they did this a lot with their skaters, especially like split stance, you know, to like kind of increase that muscle endurance for skating. And so I took one of the shafts, I took it over the drill press. I don't have a lathe, so I kind of had to like rudimentally like cut an oval in this pin and clip a carabiner through it. He's like, yes. I was like, all right, I'm going to send you this one. Destroy it. Do your worst. Put your biggest meats on it. Have them absolutely wear it out. Make it fail. And they did, and they couldn't. But we still were like, okay, instead of aluminum, we're going to make it out of stainless. We're going to engineer it so that the carabiner swivels in it perfectly so you won't get hooked up on anything. We're going to make sure all the edges are nice and soft, and we're going to put it on the same acetyl head with these 4 magnets and roll it out. And I mean, it's become one of our top selling products. You know, I put them in every single gym we have. Team USA, National Team Development Program is going to be using them. You know, I just quoted them for the Pittsburgh Penguins and Chicago Wolves. I mean, you know, so like the list goes on. And it's because it came from a real need in the space. And that's where all great ideas come from. You know, they come from a solid need, and it was a simple solution, you know, so that is so much better than like, oh, we're going to hook a barbell under you know, the cross members. We're going to hook a chain to it. And like all this, you don't have to do all that. You know, it's way too hard. So that's life changing for a coach, because now I can spend that 5 minutes, and it takes me back to when I was doing, you know, EMR.
What's EMR?
Electronic medical records. You know, the doctors are getting less and less time face to face with a patient. So if I could teach them how to build an order set so that they got that 2 minutes of their time to talk to their patient who they're trying to help, and they don't have to spend it on the computer, that's life changing for them and their patients. So it's always, again, surplus, right? We get a little back. Like, let's find a way to work hard right now so that we can make it scalable in the future. And that's a lot about what team sports and group coaching is all about. You know, if Jeff has 6 rack, he's got 18 athletes, that's 3 per station. You know, here comes my nerdiness, but it becomes a math problem to me at that time. Well, then,
for group fitness and training.
Anytime you're going to train a team.
Right.
Right. And that's what I'm focused on now. But it came from like my coaching background. Like, okay, well, my coaches just happen to have, you know, more volume. It's not one-on-one. You know, I'm not doing single studios. I'm doing, you know, rooms. So you got to have space for this. You got to have space for this. It's all just a math square footage problem. You know, your barbell's 7 foot. You need 2 foot of loading room in between barbells. And I'm just plugging and chugging numbers at that point, which is kind of my happy place anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, my clients bring me the problems, and I just think that we're able to think about them in a different way, because I'm not a manufacturing guy. You know, my dad built aircraft my whole life, and he was a quality engineer, but like, I've never had a career in that. I'm not an engineer. I'm blessed that I like to draw and sketch, and I have a technical mind.
So here's a fun one.
Yeah.
Explain what you do without explaining what you do. Tell me what you do without telling me what you do. Somebody asked me this recently, Jonathan, and you know, I make videos, I direct, we do marketing, and I said, all right, tell me what I do. I tell you what I do without telling you what I do. I make shit up and I make people smile.
Yeah,
like good. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
storytelling.
Hey, Walker, we need you. We got this thing we're gonna sell. We need this. All right, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll call you back tomorrow. And then I got to come up with something. You know, come up with an idea that's gonna be fun, entertaining, educational, yada yada, whatever, to sell a product or an idea or a location. We do a lot of medical marketing. We do a lot of tourism. We do a lot of product-based stuff too. But then once I'm on set, you know, Alan, my business partner, is so good with the camera. We hire a lot of other people to help out and do their areas of expertise. But I'm just got to make everybody happy. Hi. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you today.
You're good at it.
I love you. But I do like people, so it makes it easy. Sometimes I talk too much. But tell me what you do without telling me what you do.
I create solutions that allow people to be and become their best.
That's pretty good.
It's so wild. I try to explain it to other people sometimes, but like, to be able to take something out of your head, like I see things.
Oh gosh, this became a therapy podcast.
I see things.
I see things, yeah.
And I'm able to make them into real things that other people can see and hold and, and use.
Yeah, I do that too. I have 4 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you said that.
They came out of my wife.
It's hard to explain. Like some people are really good at SolidWorks. It's not me.
What is SolidWorks?
3D AutoCAD, where you're modeling
Gotcha.
and pulling renders and stuff. But like, I can see, like I saw exactly the way that pulley system would work before I ever laid it onto pencil and paper. And even then, like I was able to sketch it in a way because I have an art background, like I've always been a graphic designer. I've always been into, drawing and design. And so that was kind of where we came up with the ARC series rack, because I fancy myself more of an architect than an engineer. I feel like I understand principles of engineering, and you can tell with the pulleys like how it was going to go, spatial awareness, everything like that. But the design and functionality of it to be flush, to be able to go into a low clearance on a ceiling, just the ergonomics of it, the usability, round edges, no sharp edges, things like that. That's where the architecture kind of comes into play, right? So that's why we actually call these the ARC series racks. It's about architecture. Some people thought it was arc welding, but it's not. It's about architecture. And architecture lasts. Like you can see it like all over the world, right? Like people talk about the architecture in the city. And so that's what I wanted people, like when you look at our racks, like you tell us different. And it's not a bunch of fluff. We're not putting real fancy nameplates and cutting our logo all over it and putting wild colors. Like that's just not what we do. Subdued logos, no gussets, welded nuts, everything's powder coated, laser cut numbers, high quality, big value. Right. Like that's all we were ever focused on, was the value.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same for us. We shoot a lot of content, and a lot of times when I meet people and they ask me what I do, and I tell them the easiest thing I can say is I make commercials, because then they're just like, oh, okay. But they're like, oh, on TV. And I'm like, no, not really. Not on TV. Oh, like what? Well, I don't want to say it. I make content, but
content creator.
Don't.
I said
that's
it.
mean.
I said it.
That's mean. That's the meanest thing you've ever said to me.
I'm sorry. Is it? It's not.
But
it's not even close.
That's not the meanest thing you've said to me. But we do shoot a lot of content, but we want it to be quality, and that's why we shoot on a cinema lens. That's why we shoot on cinema cameras. That's why we bring out lights. We take our time and we try to develop practices and principles to be able to shoot content that is sort of has a very quick, short shelf life, but unfortunately, but it's quality, right? And I'm not worried about how many numbers or views one of our videos for a client gets as much as I am
views.
How, right? Like for you, if you're selling, let's say a $250, what are these going for right now? $400. You're selling a $400 piece of equipment, right? 1 million views is cool, but not if nobody buys it.
I'm all about the conversion rate.
Right. You're still using that same video we made for you.
It's been running for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Still works.
It still works. Yeah. We need a new one.
We do.
We do need a new one.
Yeah, we do.
I'll make you a new one.
But again, like I don't even spend that much on advertising anymore. I used to like really be into it, and I'm not really into it anymore, because it works itself out, especially in
if your product
model
is good enough, you don't have to really sell it.
Yeah, and I mean, like we get good engagement on, like I hardly ever post to Instagram. A lot of my stuff is collabs. I heard I'm terrible with names, especially right now. The Game podcast.
I don't know.
Vandy guy, jacked.
Okay.
What's his name?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Gym Launch.
I don't know who that is.
Acquisition.com.
I don't know who that is.
Look it up, Jamie.
What's his name?
I'm blanking on his name.
The Game?
The Game podcast.
The Game podcast.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Hermosi.
Hermosi.
Yeah.
So Hermosi, like he said, the only advertising you have to do is create people who will sell your brand for you.
It's pretty good.
And that resonated. I'm like, okay. That's it. So like, I work with people really close. Like we don't have an affiliate program, right? Like we just don't have an affiliate program. There are people that have discount codes, but I don't consider them affiliates. I consider them friends and high level users of our equipment. And they create content all the time and they collab with us. And that's all the posts you really see on my page.
Episode is brought to you by Surplus Strength. They've been a sponsor of the show since day one today.
High caliber strength equipment. But like in that, then I don't have to do that. So I don't have to keep up with trends, right? Because that's not what I do.
Yeah.
And the more I'm focused, what I've found, the more I'm focused on creating content, the less I'm focused on good products. And being a small shop like we are, like I kind of have to focus on the things that are really important and moving the needle. And I just get more, again, like from controlling my environment. And you're not gonna take advice from somebody who hasn't done what you're trying to do before, right?
Yes.
Like just like you wouldn't take criticism from somebody you wouldn't take advice from, right? Like you've never done this. Like, why would I listen to you, right? Like that's garbage. And I forget who said that the other day, but that this post was just like, yeah, like why would you ever take advice from somebody who hasn't done what you're doing before? And so that made me start thinking, okay, like I need to get two types of people in my life real quick. And it's the coaches who are using the equipment on a daily basis with the type of athletes that I want to build for, and people who are manufacturing at a very high level. And I need to integrate those two things into my business if I want to move to the next level. Like you got to figure out how to build the right equipment, and you got to figure out how to do it the best way. And again, this was not about saving money or margin or any of that. Of course, all that is wrapped up into me.
Those are taken for granted. Those, yeah, you have to make money and you have to sell it for a price people can afford it for. And, if the math doesn't work, then the product doesn't exist, right? And there's a lot of products that would be cool.
I am of the mindset that you can create a market if you build the right product.
Yeah, if you build the right product. Sometimes
stealth spotters are not cheap.
Yeah.
It's because they take a very, very, very long time to make. They're very difficult to make. They're very sturdy. Like in order to be low profile and stronger than the competition, you're gonna have, cheap, fast, or good. Which one do you want, right?
Yeah.
Like you get to pick two. If it's cheap and fast, it ain't gonna be good. If it's good and fast, it ain't gonna be cheap. And we went a very specific direction with those. They are the strongest, most versatile spotter arm on the market. They're the lowest profile. And in order to do that, it takes about an hour and a half to make a pair. And it's expensive and difficult, but when you use them, you get it. And so when people see that they're twice as much as normal spotter arms, it really hasn't been a problem.
What weight do you have those rated for?
I mean, we've dropped 800 pounds on them from 6 foot. Tyler's dropped 500 plus overhead multiple times on the same pair. And they just, we had to replace the plastic, but that was it, Yeah, when we dropped to 800 the second time, it dented the upright. That is the rack we did it on. And you can see the dent on the upright right there.
Yeah. No, I know I can't fit stuff on the back.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it bent an 11 gauge American made steel tube, which is crazy. Yeah. But again, it caught the barbell. So they work.
So Big John, Daddy Campbell, your dad, worked in manufacturing in the aircraft industry for a long time. He's an engineer, or what does he do?
He finished as a quality engineer.
Okay. And so you grew up around that. Did you get any inspiration from that in, wanting to make shit and build shit? How did you get to this point where are the stealth spotters the best spotter arms in the world?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
Like for real though, they really are.
Yeah.
And so, growing up with that type of dad, I know you served in the military, if that plays into this at all, but how did you get to this point where now you're manufacturing equipment for, powerlifting and I mean, if somebody needs to set, Tyler, your buddy right now, is trying to set the overhead press world record, correct?
Correct.
And so, I mean, these are sort of like a necessity in that.
Yeah, like
And so how did you get here?
So it's funny that you called it inspiration. You know, it was more like, yeah, I won't say that. It wasn't terror. Like my dad's an intense person. Like if you've ever met him, my dad's one of my best friends. Like I spend a lot of time with my dad. I'm very, very close with him, but we didn't always see eye to eye. You know, so like growing up, if we were doing a project at the house, he's like, hold the flashlight, you know, like very typical, like, you know, it was the 80s, man. It was wild.
I yelled at Cohen the other day for not pointing the flashlight.
That's not a 10
no,
millimeter.
Not there. Hold
it,
know. Up higher, up higher.
You know, I asked for a 10 millimeter, not a 3/8, you know, like whatever. And he's so obsessed with quality because in his world, 30 thousandths is your tolerance. 30 thousandths. Like if you overshoot or like off that hole, like you might scrap a whole beam. That might cost $20,000, right? His world is very, very different. And like, you know, he's very, very good at that world. But like everything he does, like if you get in his car, it's immaculate. He still rolls his socks and underwear. Everything he needed to know in life, his drill sergeant taught him. You know, my mom and dad got married. He was 18. He just graduated AIT. I think there were 2 people in attendance. And then they went off to Fort Hood and he got shipped to Germany. Like this is my father, right? Like no sat phones, no email. My mom's at Fort Hood. He's in Germany.
No text messaging.
No, for like a year, right?
No,
like he's in Nuremberg, like
no
enlisted
pictures.
But that's what we did. My grandfather like grew up on a farm, like, you know, brought water to the workers for 10 cents a week.
You've got a booger in your mustache.
In my mustache?
Yeah, I think so. Like right here.
How long has it been there?
Not long. You good? Might want to check in the mirror. I can't tell. It could just be the light from here.
I can't even tell. I think it was just a couple hairs. Like,
was it?
I think it's just white hair.
Then I got scared.
Oh my God. Look how gray I am.
Okay.
Goodness.
So no sexting.
No, definitely not. You know, it was a different time. Like this is in the 70s, right? 76, 77, Fort Hood. So dad goes to Germany, but like my grandfather, he grew up on a farm, house burned down, like all these things, like that we had to overcome as men. Like it's like a strong story that kind of followed us, you know. But I am, like, both my grandfathers were Army, you know, I'm a 4th generation veteran. Like we have strong purpose in that, but him being a quality engineer and growing up with him was tough sometimes, but it was teaching me every single step of the way. Right. Like, I think in therapy, like my therapist called, oh, your boy named Sue or whatever. And I was like, you know, he's turning me into a man, you know, because the world's tough out there. And I was like, yeah. And I don't really look at it that much. You know, it's funny. There was a point in time, you know, I grew up in a great household. I went to a good high school. I really messed things up in my life around college. And I made some decisions that were impactful going forward. 9/11 happened. I'm sitting at a community college and I watched the plane hit the second tower from my classroom. And my ex-girlfriend called me and told me she was pregnant, and stuff got pretty real pretty fast. I mean, if I'm being really honest, like I'm selling dope and going to community college, and I work in a kitchen. Like shit was not great. And so now I got a baby on the way. Like, how am I going to tell my parents this? Like, what? I'm still living at home. This is crazy. You know, I'm 19 years old. And fast forward a little bit, you know, the week before I left for basic training, I found out the baby's not mine. I had signed up because I had no other options. You know, I had gotten in some trouble. The recruiter's office came very soon after that. And then the baby came, paternity test. I'm already signed up to leave. We're going to war and the baby's not mine. I'm like, well, can I go back on this? I'm like, no, we're going. You know, it was time for a change. And so we went to the Army. We got out and I went back to night school. You know, I worked at the gym during the day. I was a personal trainer. I'd go to night school. And when I finished my degree, I was like, oh, well, this is what everybody told me that I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to go get this white collar job. I'm supposed to do all this stuff. And I just didn't feel fulfillment. until I got into.
And you were making good money. You were traveling.
Yeah, I was consulting, in high tech healthcare and doing all that, and I had some failed relationships. I had a dog and a house here, and I was just like lost. And I was getting in my young 30s. I'm like, and that was it. That was the bottom of the rope. And then I found Christ, and it wasn't long after that like I had fully surrendered, and like I had given up on women. And then he drops an anvil on me, and like I meet my wife, and like I could tell the story, like it's for a different time, but I blew her off the first time I met her. And my wife is gorgeous. Like I don't know how I outkicked my coverage that much, but I blew her off because I didn't want anything to do with it. I was just done, and she came to my life. And that second meeting, that second time we went out, I haven't left her side since. And we got engaged quickly, but she has always had my back. So like, I don't think any of this could have happened without her support. Like, I know it. I know it couldn't. And God brought her to me, brought us together and made us one flesh. And that was for a reason. So that, like we talked about, like if I trip and fall in the water, like she's there to grab me, and same thing. Like we're going to do that for each other. And so like starting Surplus Strength, it happened really fast. And it has caused turmoil in our relationship, because like sometimes I'm scattered and drawn, and I can't paint the vision for her to understand where we're actually going. Or sometimes maybe I'm not thinking fully through things, like to have a plan. We're just running as fast as we can, and it's tough to keep up. And so it like in some ways like it's been a burden, but now like that we're finally starting to like level out in year 4, it's been like, okay, this is what other entrepreneurs were talking about. Because again, addition by subtraction, I started like cutting some people out and only listening to certain people. And that's where our relationship has gotten really strong. I feel like, including some of the other guys that we hang out with on a regular basis, because we're talking about these things in a really open, non-judgy way. And having that as a man is so important, like that community. And if I didn't have that and those stories from those men that I've talked to. Josh Anderson is a buddy of mine that I talk to a lot, a really successful real estate agent here in town. He's so good at it because he's been in this for like 18 years, So he's like, yeah, I remember year 5, Jason. Like year 5 is going to feel like you made it. But like then you're going to get to year 10 and you're going to be like, oh, I was thinking really small. And like I already feel that way because like year 1, I was like 60 sales. Yeah. We sold 3,000 universal pulley systems in 37 countries. Thank you, Lord. I sent something that I just like thought of, like, that God brought to me. He's like, no, here's your solution. And it's gone to 37 countries. Unbelievable, man. Like, don't put limits on what God has for your life.
That's good. 2 Peter 1, 5-8 says, to your faith, add goodness to goodness, add knowledge to knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, and godliness, brotherly affection for others. And I think a lot of people get distracted in the knowledge portion of that. I think when Peter wrote that, he was an old man, and it was sort of just it's just sort of the way of life. Like that's how you learn and grow and do anything, is in that step. God says our steps are ordered, right? And that is an order. And so I think a lot of people get distracted when they add more knowledge to their life and they lack self-control. And so, this is a question I have to ask myself, how much can I take credit for in my perseverance, in my self-control when God added things in my life? I know that I'm here now because I did practice self-control and I did have perseverance and entrepreneurship, and even in fitness. If you want to grow a muscle, if you want to be a bad girl and have a big booty glutey, then you've got. Oh, it says be a badass with a good ass. Yes. Jenna turns that on when her clients are in here. But yeah, if you're a girl and you want a big booty glutey, it's gonna take 3 years of hip thrusts, and eating a lot of chicken.
It's the long game.
It's the long game. And you gain the knowledge, then you have to have self-control with the knowledge, and then you have to have perseverance with it. That's in everything in life and in business too. And so kudos to you. God will bless you for having that perseverance in that. I mean, he already is. And so
discipline over motivation.
Yeah, when you're not motivated. It doesn't matter. Yeah, the Gen X, like, motivational speaking conundrum is just so annoying because I'm not motivated. And okay, so let's go to a conference and get motivated. I'm like, okay, how many conferences have you paid for now? And are you motivated yet? No, because you don't have to be motivated. You just do it. You just get up and you just do it. My wife used to.
Motivation is something that someone does for you.
Yeah.
Discipline is something you do for yourself. Well, yeah, I'll say it like that. Ultimately, like, your goals may not be about yourself, but the discipline has got to be, and that's something like the military, will absolutely instill in you. Like, you have got to have discipline, or somebody will come back and teach it to you the hard way if necessary.
And you don't have a choice.
No, but that was the cool thing about the Army for me is I didn't have to make any decisions. They told me everything to do. You just got to do what you're told. If you can do what you're told, you're going to do great in the military. Nice. That's what they're looking for, And of course, like, I don't mean like talk down to like obviously like special operations and stuff like that. Those guys are making important decisions on the fly and they're trained in a way to think. But like, when you're in training, you wake up at this time, you shave at this time, you go to the bathroom at this time.
This is how you shave. And this is how you lift the spoon.
That's correct.
And, I was a military brat. I wasn't in. I couldn't join because I had Crohn's. Yeah. But I mean, I know all the stories. I've got lots of friends that are veterans. And I love the spoon story from basic. Like, when you're eating, you're a robot, and there's
all
good
the way
things
down to the way you put your pillowcase on.
Yeah.
Like, the most mundane thing. I never thought that anyone in the barracks room, I was like, standing in a room of 60 men, you're in basic, and you're like, you don't think like, I bet that dude over there doesn't know how to put a pillow in a pillowcase. It's not something that like crosses your mind, but sure shit. There were dudes in there that did not know how to put a pillowcase on. And
their mom put a pillowcase on in 1995 and it stayed on.
Right. So like, but like, you think about it, like, so the Army's like KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like, I just called it dummy proofing everything. Like, you can take any kid off the street and you can fit him into this system and it's going to roll.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to get my little brother to join. He's 18. He was adopted when I was 16. He is already an expert marksman. He's on an Olympic style shooting team.
Good time to join.
It's very good time to join. We'll see what happens, but
we need more good service members that know who they are.
Yeah, I told him if you join now, you won't have to go far, just to Mexico, and you can find you a nice Latina wife, bring her home. I don't think that got him.
No, the big booty Latina didn't get him?
I don't know. He's weird.
Come on.
He's going through some stuff.
At 18,
I love you, Joseph.
That would have got me. What'd you say? Like, they got me with like, when I went in, it was right after 9/11, but it was $40,000 signing bonus and Kid Rock tickets, dude. Like,
you got Kid Rock tickets?
If you signed up for the infantry, you did.
Wait, they gave you Kid Rock tickets?
Yeah.
Dude, I did not know that. That's incredible.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. Like, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And especially now. I've been out 20 years, I've been out long enough to drink again. Like 21 years, I've been out now. But yeah, it was just different. It was different back then, and even in that, like, when I signed up and the MOS I chose and everything, like, you can't have it back, but it was just like, wow, like, everything was lining up for a purpose. And, you start to think, like, when your dad told you all these things, oh, he was right. Well, wait, one day you'll understand. It's not untrue. Like,
yeah. Oh no.
No, it's really,
I had that conversation with my dad. I was broke, first baby, 23 years old. I called him and I said, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yep, it's all right.
You know when mine happened? Have I told you the story?
No.
I'll make it quick, but it was basic training.
Oh, really?
And we're laying on the ground in Columbia, South Carolina. And
what a terrible place.
Like Nashville's temperate. Like,
but also
all 4 seasons happen in that place. Like, and we went in October, and I left there in like April because I did, all my training there. And I saw 110 degrees down to like 14 degrees and a foot of snow. Like, it was crazy. The weather changed there, but it was 32 and raining, and I'm pulling 12-hour perimeter guard, and they didn't have Gore-Tex back then, or they sure as heck didn't issue it to us.
They had it, but you just didn't. I'm
laying on the ground. I put my poncho over my pack that had my dry socks and clothes in it, and I'm just sitting there in my field jacket getting soaked to the bone. It's 32 degrees. My hands have cracked open. I'm bleeding. And I got out my little waterproof tablet and wrote my dad a note. And I said, thank you for making me a man. I mean, like, essentially, like, I get it now. And there is a 18-year-old man next to me that is crying right now.
Yeah.
Because he wants to go home. And I'm not. Because this is fine. And that was a big growth moment for me, And I was 20 at the time. So I being an Eagle Scout, and like, I knew how to, like, I was squaring my battle buddy away. But like, if somebody dropped a can of CS in our foxhole, I'm going to put my gas mask on, and then I'm going to get to you. And that actually happened. So in another FTX that we did, here comes Sergeant, drops a can, rolls right into our foxhole. Well, you have grenade sumps on either side. So like, the protocol is, you stick it in the grenade sump, put a sandbag over it, and then go to the other side of the hole. But you sure as hell don't climb out where you can get shot. And the first thing he did was start climbing out of that foxhole. So I'm like, one arm trying to reach up, pull him down. I'm trying to get my NBC mask out and put it on me, so I'm not like choking and snotting down to my kneecaps. And then like had to put his mask on him and then get back into fighting position. And it was like, wow, I would never have been able to do that if my dad hadn't like made me
such a hard
made me
ass.
tough, like, yeah, I mean, and it's brought me really close to my dad, like later in life, which is so special, to where like we rode the Jack and back together, 75 miles down, 75 miles back on a bicycle with your father. Who gets to do that? Ride bikes with your grandson, 3 generations. Like, we get to ride bikes together. That's special. That's awesome. And I don't take it for granted. Like, I'm really, really grateful for that stuff. So, I mean,
well, I'm excited to see I see you doing that with Jacob. Our sons have been in hockey together. You're doing that with them. You're too hard on him, but is that, that's kind of the thing. You have to be too hard for a lot of other people. It's funny. I saw some of my extended family recently, and one of my aunts pulled me aside and she goes, Jacob, you're too tough on your kids. Literally half an hour later, sitting at the restaurant where there's a bunch of other kids running around crazy, and my 3 children are sitting there like perfect little angels, I hear from the other side of the table, "What do you see? Why are Walker's kids so well behaved?" Well, because if they don't, well, they're gonna.
Do you remember the day we were at the rink with the boys?
Oh, when we made them run. It
was a lazy day. It was a lazy day. That's the one thing that I can't do.
I'm okay with mistakes as long as you're trying.
I don't even care. There's no scoreboard. Like, I don't even care about the score. Yeah. Like, not everybody gets a trophy. Don't get me wrong. There's winners and losers. But like, you just go out there and you give it your best. Mm-hmm. And
or at least 80%, right?
That's best some days.
Yeah.
But like, we're not going to go out there and sleep and goof off and waste other people's time.
Yeah.
And they did that day. And that girl came by in the hallway and we're like, what are y'all doing? And like, well, we're not raising bitches, we're trying to make men out of these boys. And, they had some energy left over because they didn't spend it when they were supposed to.
Mm. Yeah. There you go. Well,
Cohen grew that day.
Yeah. We've had a couple more of those.
Yeah.
We've got a couple more late night. He's in wrestling right now. We've had a couple late night car rides home after wrestling practice. But,
you know what happens if I waste a day in my business?
Well, the family doesn't eat.
I have to pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
I got to go to the warehouse. If I waste my time during the day, like doing podcasts and stuff,
Oh, shut up.
I have to go and work late.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that if you're going to do that, like you got to pay for it elsewhere.
Well, let's get you back to the warehouse and back to the hockey rink with Jacob for more training. Jason, I love you. Thanks for coming on.
I love you, man.
Wish you the best of luck. And thanks, everyone, for watching. See you next time.
That was fun.
Oh God.